Hi, it's Claire. Today we're going to be saying goodbye to the back gap and showing you an easy swayback adjustment. So today you're going to need unpicker, sewing machine, denim needles, sewing thread and fabric shears. So if you do have a swayback, this is where at the back of trousers you have a gap between your hips, kind of above your bum. There's always too much fabric. So we're going to take a small wedge out of the back of the jeans to get a great fit over the back. So to start off, you're going to need to snip with your fabric shears across the waistband next to the belt loop. Try not to damage the belt loop because we will need this later in the tutorial. Once you've cut through the waistband, you're going to unpick the stitching to open up that centre back seam. So usually this will be a flat belled seam, so it'll be several layers of fabric. So you might have to use a combination of small embroidery scissors or just some very, very small scissors and your unpicker to release all of the seam. Once you've managed to undo all the seam, you want to fold it over and work out how much you want to take out of it. And then we're going to remove the belt loop and start to take apart the waistband so we can start to reattach it, taking out that excess fabric that we don't need. So the belt loop later is going to cover the seam and all of the alteration, so it's really useful if you can keep this to kind of cover that up. So the more that you unpick the waistband and open it out, the kind of easier it'll make the next few stages. So you want it a few centimetres past that flat felled seam. And it does help to take out all of the loose threads before you start, just to help it look really tidy. So then to do the flat felled seam, you're going to want to fold the raw edges inside of that seam. So fold the raw edge inside the other fold as seen in the video, and then you're going to pin it in place, and then this will be top stitched. Apologies that my hands keep going out of view. I will do a close-up in a minute to show you what I'm doing. So folding the raw edge inside the other raw edge and then loads of pins. There we go, so that's all pinned and ready to be stitched. So I've just noticed that there's a bit of raw edge sticking out at the back, so I'm just going to go ahead and refold that section. So this bit is a little bit fiddly, but if you can get it right, it'll make a big difference to how it's sewn. So I'm just using an unpicker there just to push in that little bit of edge, just to give a really smooth finish. Next, you're going to need to put a matching top stitch thread and a denim needle into your machine And then you're just going to top stitch on the existing lines of stitching, trim any loose threads. So now we're going to want to go opposite way across the centre back seam to secure it on both sides. So it's quite easy to follow where the manufacturer stitched it before. You may need to use a hump jumper, so a piece of folded fabric to lift the presser foot up to stop you having any skipped stitches at this point. And I would start a little bit further back than you unpick to, just to reinforce all of the stitching to stop any coming undone. And I go nice and slowly over this because where the seams join, there are several layers of fabric there. Once that's all stitched up, you're going to want to go and fold the waistband back on itself. Again, you might need your hump jumper here because it's quite a thick layer of fabric. So you're going to fold the waistband over and stitch it in place. I'd start with the inside of the waistband to have the minimal amount of stitching shown on the outside. So inside first, then outside, fold it over, keeping all the raw edges enclosed. So you may want to stitch down one edge first, just to hold it in place before you do the second edge. So that's holding that down, so now the second edge can be folded. And although this looks a little bit bulky now, but it can be trimmed down and it will be covered with the belt loop. So stitch over the folded over layer using your hump jumper to secure that in place. Once you have secured the waistband together, so it's now a much smaller size and you've taken that wedge out of the waistband, you're going to sew widthways across the waistband to reattach this to the yoke of the jeans. Again, you want to start a little bit before the stitching that you took out and stop a little way after and reverse stitch to reinforce this. And this will reattach all of the jeans back together. Trim off any loose threads, and you might have a little tuft at the top where the jeans will reattach, and you might want to trim that off as well. To reattach the belt loop, you're going to need to set your machine to a bar tack stitch. So this is a really narrow zigzag with a really short stitch length. So what I would recommend is testing this on a little piece of denim or thick fabric first to check that you're happy with it and it's going to match the rest of the jeans. Once you've experimented with your stitches and you've found one that you are happy with, you can use this stitch to reattach the belt loop. Again, because you're going to be going through several layers of fabric here, you might need to use a hump jumper behind you to ensure you don't have any skipped stitches. So it's going to need to be reattached at the top and at the bottom. Because you've taken this out of the waistband, it may be the case that you need to just trim a little bit of fabric from the bottom because it's no longer attached via the waistband due to the adjustment we've just made. And this is going to cover up a lot of the alteration that we've done, so it shouldn't be very noticeable. By this point, you should be finished. So it's just a matter now of trying them on, testing the fit, checking that you're happy with it, removing any loose stitches and checking that you can actually move and breathe in your jeans, because obviously you do still need to be able to move. If you've got any questions about anything from today's tutorial, please let me know in the comments.